Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen, for another episode of Project Fairlady. Been a crazy couple of weeks here in the shed, folks. As you'd be aware, there was no video last week. I've just been under the pump with my real job and also with working on the Fairlady, planning stuff out on the Fairlady, and doing tons and tons of research on where I'm going with my next step with this vehicle. I've also been working on that front lip down there and doing a lot of repair work since I cut it and had to reshape it after doing these inner guards and getting everything right. Once I started kind of working on that and stripping it back, I found heaps of old repairs that were done really badly and heaps of really bad shattered fiberglass and stuff in it. So I ended up stripping most of it back and re-fiberglassing it and sort of getting it all right. Now I've actually got it pretty close to being right. But in typical Aussie Shed fashion, folks, I've decided to completely reshape the spoiler. So I'm actually going to cut it up and do a lot of major restructuring with that front spoiler. I've also been working on the hood slash bonnet. That's my spare hood slash bonnet. It's got a little bit of hail damage on it. I think it's probably repairable, but it's one that I've had just sort of sitting out the back. And I thought I might muck around with some bonnet venting. Now, I've had bonnet venting planned for quite some time with the vehicle. I've looked at all different aftermarket bonnets and things like that, and nothing really sort of floats my boat. I don't really want to put anything externally on the car that's going to change its appearance from being fairly original, you know. The front bar, having those couple of ducts in where the fog lights go, I'll put up with that. The Twin Z center panel with the slot in it, I like those as well. For me, that doesn't really detract from the original appearance. And, you know, I'm going to be putting a Twin Z factory style-ish rear spoiler on it, which again, doesn't look anything out of the ordinary because I'm not a huge fan of big body kits and things like that. My goal with this thing is, as I mentioned sort of right from the start, is to keep it looking fairly standard on the outside so it doesn't draw undue attention to it. And I'm able to just sort of cruise around with it without sort of drawing too many eyes on it. I'm not a person who really wants a bright yellow or a bright friggin' purple car or something like that that's really going to sort of draw everyone's attention. So back to the bonnet venting, like from a functional standpoint, it's something that I really always wanted to do. Considering the stuff that I'm doing underneath the car with a flat floor and a lot of sort of undercar aero that I have planned for the car, it would be really beneficial if I can get some bonnet venting into it. So I've been cutting holes in the bonnet, folks. Let's go over and have a little bit of a look. So you can see just how close everything is, folks. There's your fuel rails just there. And, you know, all this sort of stuff, like it's very, very close. There is literally only millimetres of clearance with everything. So in order to fit bonnet vents, particularly in that area there, they have to be sort of quite low profile. I'll open the hood up, the bonnet up, and we'll have a bit of a look underneath, and I'll show you why I have the vents in this position here, because ideally I would have liked to pull this forward about 70 or 80 millimetres more to the front to be more beneficial with the airflow over the car. It's a little bit too far back for my liking, but it's still pretty good. It's still within the zone. I don't think I'm going to have any reversion problems with that vent. So I'll get the bonnet up and we'll have a bit of a look underneath. Alright, so you can see why I've gone to those positions there. It's mainly governed by this brace across the front of the bonnet there. I didn't want to cut into that. That's a really major structural component of this bonnet, so I've just come as close to it as I possibly could. Realistically, I could have maybe squeezed another 10 mil this way out of it, but, you know, at the time, that's where I positioned it. The vents on the side, I just position those so they look aesthetically good from the outside and sort of line up. And you can see that they're actually in an area that has no structural benefit to the bonnet either. They're right in the middle of all of that bracing. So putting these vents in hasn't compromised the bonnet in any way, in my opinion. Well, obviously you can see that it hasn't. There was a really thin structure in the centre here just to stop the bonnet popping up and down, but it was very, very light, and you can see it wasn't actually part of the main structure. Otherwise there would be big things cut out where it used to be, which you can see there obviously isn't. So that's why I've chosen that position there for these bonnet vents. Let's get the bonnet back down, and I'll pop the vents in and give you a look at them and see what you think. And you can notice too, this bonnet is in really, really great condition on the underside. This is the original bonnet off the Fairlady, I would assume. I got it as a spare with the car because it had some hail damage on it. But the paintwork on it matches perfectly with the paintwork on the car because it has had a bit of a respray in a lot of areas. And the hood that was on it, that I haven't cut up, that's in good condition, as in you know, no hail damage or anything like that on it. But the paintwork is slightly different, even though the colour is fairly similar. And the vehicle emission control sticker, which this one has on there, was for a DE engine, and this is the original DETT 300ZX turbo emission control information on that sticker. So I assume this is the original hood that was on this vehicle, that at some point was in a bit of a hailstorm, and due to the fact that the bonnets on these things are aluminium and the body's steel, the bonnet sort of came out a hell of a lot worse than the rest of the car did through this hailstorm. There are a few small hail marks here and there on the vehicle, but they're just very, very minuscule compared to this that actually sustained quite a bit of damage. Well, when I say a bit of damage, it's not major. It obviously wasn't a massive, big hailstorm. They were probably only fairly small chunks of hail, but you know, the aluminium bonnets on these things are pretty soft. Anyway, let's get this thing shut. I'll drop these vents in, and you can tell me what you think about them. And there it is. So they're the vents I'm going to be using, folks. You can see they're very low profile. They sit almost completely flush with the hood there. And I really like them. They clear the engine, which is absolutely perfect. I think I'm possibly going to paint them body colour, so they will basically just blend in. You won't really be able to notice them too much unless you know they're there and you're kind of looking for them. I just think they will become quite innocuous when they're painted. Now, these vents came from TrackSpec Motorsport in the US. They are not Z32 specific vents, and they did require quite a bit of modification to get them to fit in the Z32 hood, because they are shaped for different vehicles, you know. And the profile didn't really suit this hood, but bit of manipulation, bit of cutting and welding and whatnot on them, and they've actually come up really, really good. And best of all, they should be really, really functional. Let's go and have a little bit of a look around here. And this way, you can see there's the engine and everything there. Just clear off everything, which is fantastic. These side vents, no problem. There's nothing that's even close to interfering with those. But yeah, that's sort of the main area there. And where that sits, it's actually just at the very front of the engine, and just behind where the fan shroud finishes from the radiator. So all this sits well back, as you'd probably know if you own the Z32. The motor and everything sits right back. So really you can't bring the hood vent right sort of to the front anyway, because your radiator doesn't sort of start to here, and then you've got your fan shroud and everything on the back side of it. So you know, obviously you don't want to be this side of the radiator fan shroud. So it's not that bad, really. It's not that bad. Honestly, if I had free choice, I probably would have come maybe another 2.5 inches forward, but I don't see it as being a real problem where that is. Alright, I'll get this camera back on the tripod. So I'll get her up in the air, folks, and I'll show you a couple of other things that I've done. So things are about to get controversial, folks. You'll notice there's a bit of shiny stuff along here. That's a bit of aluminium angle. It's one of these on both sides of the vehicle. And what they are is supports for the flat aerodynamic under tray that I'm building for the Fairlady. Now, it's in the very early stages of construction, so there's nothing really to show. I'm actually going to do a full video fairly soon on road car underbody aerodynamics, which is something that I'm sort of quite passionate about and always have been. And it's one of the reasons why I've been a bit slow doing stuff on the car and didn't get a video out last week, is I've been studying up on my underbody aerodynamics, just bringing myself up to speed. I've been kind of out of touch with that stuff for probably the last, I don't know, 15 years or so. And there's been quite a lot achieved in that area. So I really felt before I got too far into this that I really need to kind of just bring myself up to speed. So I've been reading a couple of books, looking at a lot of sort of online papers that I've been able to track down, and even looking at a lot of YouTube videos and things like that, just trying to get my head completely into the current theory of road car underbody aero. So as I say, folks, big video coming up on this fairly soon. I don't know whether I'll get it done in one or maybe two videos, but if you are interested in underbody aerodynamics for road cars, particularly for the Z32, you may find it slightly interesting. Another small modification that I've done here, folks, you can see I've put some louvers in this section here. That's actually just behind the radiator. That's just to sort of let a bit of that air out, a bit of that pressurized air from behind the radiator out. Again, that's a result of the research that I've been doing on underbody aero, and it's kind of changed the way I've been thinking about some of the stuff that I'd planned on doing on the vehicle. All this stuff that I've already done through here, it's spot on. There's no need to really change anything in that area, other than those few extra vents that I've kind of put in there, which I think will be beneficial because of other changes that I am going to be making. So I think that just about covers where I am at this stage, folks. Sorry there's not a lot of actual making of things to show you, but so at least you can see where I am with the Fairlady and the way things are going in my head and what I've kind of got planned for stuff and why it's sort of caused a little bit of a hiccup. The biggest thing that slowed me up is I put a ton of work into that front spoiler and just, you know, throwing myself into underbody aerodynamics again. But well worth it, folks, well worth it. As I mentioned, if you're interested in any of that stuff, I will have a couple of decent videos, or one decent video. I don't know how it's going to pan out. But if you're interested in aero, underbody aero for street cars, which I think is a real major thing, due to the fact that there are way more benefits to be made with underbody aero than slapping big wings and splitters and stuff like that on your car that look a bit average, shall we say. So anyway, folks, thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed. Bloody pleasure to have you here as always. Hopefully next week I'll have something a little bit more substantial for you to look at. Remember to subscribe if you aren't yet subscribed to the Aussie Shed, just so you don't miss any updates on Project Fairlady, and maybe you might want to look through some of my library of other things that I've done. So smash the like button, leave a comment, and I'll bloody well see yous hopefully pretty soon. Cheers.